I'm Susan Montgomery. I'm the transit planner at MCAT.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Yes, you will move it short. All right. I put the picture on the cover because it's pretty important. Our roof got ripped off during Hurricane Milton. People were in the building. It was a very scary experience. So I just wanted to share that. This is our annual ridership trend. For fiscal year 2024, we 2 million riders for the first time in our history. It is important that I emphasize the reason for that is because we started tracking ridership in a new way. We used automatic passenger counters rather than relying on a bus operator to press a button every time someone gets on the bus. We feel it's more accurate, but the increase is quite dramatic. Hoping that translates into funding with the feds. All right. Again, monthly ridership, and you can see that those red bars are a lot higher than the other ones. That's this fiscal year. So we have gone up almost 40%. In December or November 2nd, we started a new bus on Cortez Road. We used an FDOT service development grant to fund half of that. We now have 30-minute service on that very busy route between DeSoto Station and Blake Hospital. Eventually, we would like to put more service on that route, but it's a funding issue for us right now. So want to talk a little bit about Hurricane Milton. We did, as everyone in this room did, a lot of work responding and preparing. So we had an unhoused shuttle bus. We did trips from the island. We had a bus sitting on the island because many people lost their transportation in Hurricane Helene and needed to evacuate for Hurricane Milton. So one of the pictures here is our bus driver, William Cawley. He was thanked by the city of Bradenton Beach. We were out there 2 days after Hurricane Milton. At least one bus on the island. The island asked for that, and we were happy to be able to provide it. All right, so that kind of covers Milton. We are currently working on a brand new Veterans on Demand service. The target start date is currently January 7th. We will be contracting with a company called Spare Labs. It will be digitally enabled with an app-based services, but eligibility will go through Manatee County's Veteran Services Department. This is kind of a test case. We hope to be able to offer mobility on demand in wider areas of the county. But again, this is a way to put our toe into the water with certain eligibility criteria. We are currently working with Breeze Transit on an agreement regarding the federal 5307 allocation to the UZA. And we believe that is coming before the Manatee County Board of County Commissioners in the next month or so. And I'm sure Jane will tell you her timeline for her team. All right, we are still experiencing some bus operator shortages, and we're doing our best to keep service out there on the road. We've also reached out to the American Public Transportation Association and the FTA Region 4 regarding some funding for some of the hurricane damage. That roof, as you can imagine, is going to cost a lot of money, and we are looking for any and all sources to help fund that. We're still working with Breeze Transit on Longboat Key on Demand. The average trips per month is about 452 currently, and we pay $30 plus for each direction, each trip per person. So we're just, you can see we're part of all the trips that Sarasota County does in that area. And we're still working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau on the Gulf Islands Ferry. they are having some challenges based on the hurricane, and I believe that they will be back running this week, if only to Bradenton Beach. But again, that service is still managed by the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we just assist with some of the technology aspects. So with that, are there any questions?
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Going back to your stats on the increase in ridership by 40%. I was curious if that 40% takes into account the increase in population and what that number, if it correlates or if it is truly, you're truly feeling that it's due to the new system of recording the passengers.
Actually, Commissioner, there's one other factor that we think is pretty large, and that is that we provide our services fare-free. And that has increased ridership even before we changed the counting methodology. So I am not sure that it really increases in terms of population, because the density of our urban core that we serve with our transit system has not really increased.
Since when are they free? Is it free, the service?
November of 2022.
Okay.
And we do not know, we're currently evaluating. We do not know if fares will return.
Okay. And then
Commissioner says no.
And then also my question about the cost on the longboat key on demand.
Yes.
You have the MCAT cost per trips is $30.60 and the cost to the passenger is $2. Is the $2 backed out or is that added into the cost?
I think I would have to defer to Jane on that because I have not read the agreement.
Okay.
So
just curious.
let me defer to Jane Grogg on that.
Okay. And then my last question, if I may, if I could, whenever you have the opportunity to get me more stats on that ferry and the ferry. I know that the hurricanes have disrupted things, but any information that you have on that going forward, I would really appreciate.
Actually,
anything.
we've already provided that information very recently to your City of Sarasota Transportation Planning staff.
Okay.
So if you follow up with Alvy Marie or Corinne, they can assist you with very current information.
Okay, official request to Alvy Marie and Corinne, please. Thank you. With the permission of the interim city manager, of course.
Okay, any other questions?
Breaking any rules.
Yes, ma'am.
With regard, and I don't know, maybe you might not have this information, but the Gulf Islands area, I understand for now is going to be just for workers on the island. Or-
No, it's
Okay,
back to, I can give a little update on that. It's back to normal Thursday through Sunday now, but it's just to Bradenton Beach because Anna Maria Island doesn't have a pier out to that anymore, the way the things are, but they're working on a temporary landing site right now, from what I understand, and maybe we can get a little bit more from our island people, but it's running and I live right looking down at the dock, so I see it every day when it's running, and it's pretty full. And it's been running for about a week to 2 weeks now for passengers. It was going with some workers and, for free for them out there. And ultimately, I think it's very important that we collaborate with the two counties, with the cities involved, because we did talk about this once before with that. If everything's working well and the new boat is ordered, that will be kind of the faster boat, where if we could make it from the downtown Bradenton area all the way to St. Armand's Circle and City of Sarasota, what regional transportation awards would we win for that if it really worked that well? And I think that's something that if I could go from downtown Bradenton to downtown Sarasota, never get in a car and enjoy the ride, but at a reasonable time, and that's what the new boat will do when it comes in. So I think there's opportunity, and we don't have to recreate the wheel between the two counties. You guys don't have to do your own. We can make it in collaboration. And I think that's something that was the ultimate start of it. But if we don't continue to work together on that, it's going to be back and forth for everybody. But I think it's a good start. Now we didn't want to have 3-4 months of hurricanes that really slowed everything up either. But thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Move on, and now we'll have Sarasota County Breeze Transit Quarterly Report. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jane Grog, the Director of Breeze Transit. Usually you have Megan Louie, our Planning and Performance Manager. She's celebrating Thanksgiving with her family this week, and I wanted to extend a happy Thanksgiving to all of you as well. So as we usually do, start off with a snapshot of our ridership and look back over the monthly ridership for the last year. The bars indicate comparisons to the two previous fiscal years. And as you'll notice, we saw a decline in ridership during the month of September. That was due to Helene. There were a couple of services that were paused around the time of that storm, and of course, lower ridership, fewer visitors, et cetera. So September last year, compared to this, we're down about 11,000 riders for the month of September in that comparison. In the next quarterly update, all the months shift, and you'll see the October impacts from Milton, which was another 30-some thousand impact in ridership for October, when you see that in the next quarter. And if you look at all of our services by type, this includes our Breeze bus service, our trolleys, our on-demand service, and our Breeze Plus service. All together, you can see both the seasonality that we experience, as well as that dip that we incurred related to Hurricane Helene. And most of the impact was to our fixed route and our Siesta trolley service, shown in purple and the light blue in the impact here. And although our ridership was impacted from those storms, that doesn't mean that our team wasn't very busy. I'm very proud of our team and the efforts that they contributed to relief efforts, both pre and post-storm, for all three storms this season. We provided about 2,000 trips related to hurricane evacuations for Debbie, Helene, and Milton. This picture here is a pickup of about 40-some residents in a community facility that was in an evacuation zone for Milton, and took them to a nearby evacuation center. And then I'd like to touch on some of our seasonal updates that we experienced. These went into effect November 2nd. Each year around that time, we reintroduced the seasonal Route 33, but we had some other exciting changes this year. The most being our extension of our Siesta trolley to downtown Sarasota. So the 77 Siesta Islander previously ran on the key only. And due to both FDOT support and our county commission support, that has now been extended to downtown Sarasota. And then as well, we've made some modification to two routes to some new commercial areas in the community. One on Route 9, now going in and serving Welland Park in the Main Street there in Welland Park, as well as on Route 3, serving Fruitville Commons, which you may know is the Fruitville and Lakewood Ranch Boulevard area, that shopping complex there. Our on-demand zone in Venice and Inglewood had a slight addition as well, increasing the service boundary to include a Walmart and shopping complex in the Inglewood area. Walmart happens to be the #1 destination of VIA riders across the country. So being that close to our zone, that slight expansion will hopefully create more shorter trips. There's already a Walmart in Venice in that rather large zone. So trying to set up some additional efficiencies within that area as well. The last addition that went into effect on November 2nd was the ability for our transportation disadvantaged riders who choose to ride the on-demand service can now pre-book their trips. Previously, they were able to pre-book on the Breeze Plus service, and on-demand, the general ridership has to book at the time that or request a trip at the time they want to travel. And giving this advantage to our transportation disadvantaged riders, we hope will encourage them to choose the on-demand service for their shorter localized trips, because that is a cheaper service to the taxpayer to provide that service. There's a lower subsidy on the on-demand service than Breeze Plus. So we're trying to incentivize those moves over to the on-demand service. About a week ago, on November 19th, our board also held a public hearing related to on-demand fares. Staff evaluated data, presented information about the services and the need to balance the growing demand, 500% since it started in June of 21, with the increasing costs of providing that service. So at the hearing, our board asked to set a discussion to dive in a little bit deeper on the dynamics of the fare structure as opposed to setting a new fare at the on that date. So staff is working with our contractor and best practices to bring back some alternative concepts as well as demographics of those who ride the service. And we'll bring that back to our board to consider an alternative fare structure. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think there was a follow-up question that Susan may have deferred to me. Would you like me to address
Yes,
that one?
Thank you.
The one related to the longboat key service. The structure of that agreement is for the cost per trip, regardless of fares. The fares are collected within the service, and so that is the total cost to Manatee County for trips that begin or end in Manatee County.
So the $30.60 or whatever that was, is that including the $2 or it's out, or it's not including the $2?
It's not including the $2. That's just the.
Okay, so you can back
step-
out the cost of the $2 per trip out of that total cost then.
I'm not sure I understand when you say back out.
So if you're saying it costs $30.60 a trip and there are 10 trips, you do the math on that, what it costs. Is it $30.60 a trip or is it $28.60 a trip?
It's the cost to provide the services, the $30.60 some cents. And that is fares were not included nor taken out. So that amount was established based on the performance and productivity of that particular zone. We see trips in some of our more productive zones that are closer to $11 and $13 per trip. So the more people that share the trip, the higher efficiency.
Sure.
The agreement includes a description to revisit that amount each year.
Okay, I'm not questioning the amount. I was just questioning the overall end number, if that included the $2 received or not. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And again, I'm gonna kind of remind the board that we've kind of adjusted that this year, once I came in as chairman, to bring this meeting into so we could all get the information. Because when it was happening at 8 o'clock, nobody was showing up. So I think it's worked well. So I would hope that we would continue to do this in the future. So we don't have to have no pressure. No, but I just think it's worked well to get us all the information as well as to get the information out to the public.
Yeah.
So thank you. All right, next we have agenda item number 5, reports. First is 5A, the Florida Department of Transportation, which I don't think Mr. Secretary's been very busy over the last couple months. It's just kind of been a ho-hum summer, I'm sure, right? Thank you.
That's right, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So I got a couple of items that I wanted to mention. Obviously, talking about the hurricane response, we got not a direct hit from Hurricane Helene, but storm surge did cause a lot of impacts, and a direct hit from Milton. Very thankful that we didn't have as much damage from Milton, but a lot of debris collection. So one highlight that I was going to mention is, with Helene, we had Gulf of Mexico Drive filled with sand. Never thought that we were going to be in a sand moving operation, but we were. And, you heard, you saw the governor's press conference where he challenged us to finish the sand moving operation, open the roadway, fix the roadway, because Gulf of Mexico Drive was washed out at multiple places. And he gave us a challenge for 5 days. Some folks thought it was going to take a few weeks, and my team, pretty much all the operation centers, maintenance crews came in. At one point, we had including the contractor and my team, about 80 to 100 people working on the 2-lane facility with multiple equipment. And we cleared about 46,000 cubic yards of sand, which equates to about 3,000 dump trucks that we moved to the Coquina Beach area, the park. And we finished it in 2.5 days. Yeah, 2.5 days. That was amazing feat. In fact, there was a Twitter post which one of the individuals, they just posted 3 pictures in the post. One was Pine Island, 3 days, Sanibel, 15 days, and then Bradenton Beach, 2.5 days. And the ending comment was, if only they sent FDOT to bring the astronauts back. That was a great post. I took the screenshot and I kept it, So later part of the agenda, when we do the project updates, we do have a video that we create, what we've started since our secretary came on board is telling our story, better. So we are doing these video clips to kind of put it out to the public on all the great things that we do. So we'll play that video in addition to the work program video. By the way, Sarasota Airport, as you know, has experienced damage. Their roof came off, and kudos to Rick and his team. They fixed it in record time and started the operations within 3 days. So we're working with them to provide some low interest or no interest loan. The final details are coming through so that we can help them with the cash flow, and also working with Port Manatee in addressing the impacts from Hurricane Helene and Milton so that they can get their operations back to normal, right? So those are a couple of challenges that we're working on. I do want to thank Manatee County and the island communities. So they, without their cooperation, we wouldn't have finished this within the timeline that we talked about, and Bradenton, city of Bradenton too. And then the other challenge that we faced is, as we were clearing the sand on Bradenton Beach, Hurricane Milton formed, right? It was moving towards us, and the governor gave us another impossible task of moving debris off the island before Hurricane Milton came in, and our crew and our contractor worked until 3 a.m. the day before hurricane hit, and they made a big dent in debris operation. So we helped out Bradenton Beach and Holmes Beach and Anna Maria with the operation. So it was very gratifying to help our communities, because that's what we do, right? Helping our communities. So later part of the agenda, we're going to be talking about our work program and for the next 5 years. So one thing that we've experienced this year as we are developing the program is, with the inflation the last 2 years, the pricing has went up about 35%. So as an example, if I had $2 billion 2 years ago, if I program projects with $2 billion, that same program is about 1.4 billion. I'm just using an example. So that's like a 600 million impact, right? So this year, we had to shift some projects in our strategic intermodal system, which is the projects on I-75, State Road 60, 70, US 27, those, critical corridors. So throughout the state, there's going to be some shift in projects on our strategic intermodal system. We're still maintaining our focus on resurfacing and trying to address the smaller projects in our communities. But one good trend that we are seeing is the bids are coming in very close to our estimates now, which means that, we actually are developing our project cost estimates closer to what the industry is bidding at. So which brings more stability as we build our program. So hopefully this trend continues. And I want to thank Dave and his staff for working with us. It's been a very tough, work program building year, and they have been very collaborative with us. Kind of like being flexible with funding and making sure that we are funding all the priorities that the communities want. So that's basically my update, Mr. Chair.
All right, yes, sir.
So I had 6 feet of sand in my driveway on Longboat Key on GMD, and I got to see personally how fast you all got rid of the sand once you started, and I really want to thank you very much for that.
Definitely. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I'll just say a few comments that something that I don't think the public sees as much, and then especially after Helene, if you didn't have any damage, and there's a lot of areas in our counties that didn't have the water damage, the way the storm surge came in. So you were thinking that wasn't much going on. You know, you had some trees down and a little bit, but the city of Bradenton, for example, we had over 700 homes that had 6 inches to 5 feet of water in their house. And it doesn't matter if it's 6 inches or 5 feet, everything is ruined because it gets wet. And, you know, we really were trying to work on that and, you know, seeing all of the different opportunities that people had to work together, you know, in Bradenton Beach. And my dad has a house on 6th Street South in Bradenton Beach that he grew up in the 40s and 50s and 60s and couldn't get out there. So, you know, personally, everybody was impacted by certain things. But one of the things that I saw the whole state, from the governor down to all the communities, is everyone worked together to try to figure out how to do it. It wasn't, you know, pointing or saying, well, we're not getting this done, we're not getting that done. And I was so impressed when you'd see, because, you know, we talk about traffic through the city of Bradenton and what we're not doing to fix it in the city of Bradenton, but a lot of it isn't our traffic, it's coming through. And it was fun watching those dump trucks, one after another, come from the islands, knowing that things were getting done out there to help people. And then, oh, by the way, another storm's on its way. So, you know, how many communities have to plan that?
Yeah.
And it's different. And, you know, when we were out there that day standing and seeing some of the homes that while you were getting the sand off or working that with the governor, 2 weeks later, some of those homes that were still standing aren't standing anymore.
Yeah.
So not only did they get devastated by the flooding, then they got devastated by the wind. So, and that's something for us, we can move on if you didn't have damage, but now, you know, we still got to keep it going. So I just want to say kudos to DOT all the way around. I think every person in this room that dealt with it, you know, which all of us were going through it, that, you know, the good and the bad with it, because we're still getting bashed on social media about how we're not getting debris picked up fast enough. You know what? It's a process, people. Be patient. And I know in Manatee County, we lost no lives. So I didn't hear in Sarasota County. I hope that's true too. So the 2 counties with this devastation we had, there was no lives lost. And look to North Carolina, look to other areas. So we are very fortunate. And that has a lot to do with our transportation system. So thank you, Mr. Secretary, and everyone all the way up. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. All right. So any other questions? All right, moving on, we'll go to Commissioner Nunder for the MPO HD report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You know, if I could just take a quick second and piggyback off your previous comments, I think it's very important to recognize, you know, in Sarasota County, our EOC operations during our events, our staff that were, you know, pretty much sequestered for the duration of the emergency. Brian Usher, our solid waste department chair, who really has worked with his staff around the clock to do, you know, what we're doing out there in our public is asking for trash pickups and asking for help. So I just wanted to say thank you to Brian and his team, all of our Sarasota County staff during this process. They've been very effective. And to your point, patience, we're currently competing with events from North Carolina all the way down south, right? So, and the private contractors that have taken their time to come into the area also to provide their expertise, much appreciated. So moving on to the MPO AC, I wanted to first begin by saying I attended with Dave Hutchinson and staff. It was a good meeting. It will be my last meeting. It was my last meeting. I will not be taking on that role anymore. And quite honestly, the meeting circled around strategic plan ideas, an endeavor that has taken, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, it was about a year.
2 years.
Yeah, over 2 years. It's been a long and arduous process. However, the current president, CEO of that organization has just recently resigned as of last week. And I think FDOT has put out an application for filling that position starting in January. I think we're looking for a new direction with that organization. We don't currently know where that could go. Last year, legislators were looking at legislations to possibly remove it. So we're just kind of looking to see where that organization goes and the direction that it goes. But I do think that there's going to be a good replacement there to dive into the organization and give us updates. But it's a wonderful experience. Thank you to my colleagues for your confidence in me attending. And Dave, if you'd like to add anything on there, please feel free.
I think you covered it well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now we'll move on to the Dave Hutchinson will give us the MPO Executive Director report, which will include the final draft of the 2025 Sarasota Manatee MPO meeting schedule.
Yes, thank you, Chair Mayor Brown, members of the board. Good to see you all. We left here after the last meeting, we did not know that you'd be hit with basically three storms, one every couple of weeks over the last few months. And so it's certainly been eventful from the weather side of things. And, I've seen the impacts throughout the region, and a lot of progress is being made on getting things, back, but it's going to take a while in some areas. So again, kudos and thanks to FDOT and your jurisdictions for efforts to respond and recover. I've got two walk-on items or additional items for the agenda. One is an additional tip amendment requested by FDOT that has two items on it, and also a clarification modification to our MPO holiday policy that could be added to the consent agenda. Then we also have the calendar. There is still one conflict in the next year with the city of Sarasota that we're oh, you're saying two. I thought we just had one. So I don't know that we can move our meetings away from Mondays. Which two Mondays conflict?
May and October.
May and
yeah.
October. Okay. So, because of holidays in both cases where the meeting schedule has changed, and it's possible that the October meeting could go to, well, actually, we can't go to the 27th because of the deadline for adopting the long range plan is set in federal statute or regulation, and we have to adopt it by a certain date. So unless you adopt in September, we'd have to modify. We can't.
Could there be a reason we
out.
can't move it to September to modify that?
The only reason would then be you're always set in September for going forward forever, or for every 5 years.
And that may not work out logistically.
It's not ideal, but it may be advantageous, and we have a year to see if we can work that out as far as with the city goes. We had talked to them about making some adjustments to their calendar, but that wasn't possible. And so we'll continue to try to resolve that difference. I know that this has been our dates. I'm not quite sure why there's a conflict the last 2 years other than holidays. And the board doesn't vote on this. If we can adapt to accommodate the city's schedule, we certainly will. And we'll work with the mayor, Alpert, and see if they can, look at maybe starting their meeting a slightly later, so where members could come here and then go to their regular commission meeting. And the one other item that is in your packet or at your places is a national organization of MPOs called AMPO, and it's their steering ahead. It's a policy roadmap, as Secretary Nandum said. Revenues, we didn't say revenues are going down, but they're basically going down. Costs are going up. The current federal authorization that funds MPOs, but it also funds a good portion of transportation projects both in our state and region and throughout the country, is usually about a 6-year bill, maybe a 5-year bill. The current authorizations run through 2026, and those are being worked on by folks in Washington, D.C. and around the country as far as what policy changes will be made in the next authorization. And AMPO has developed and adopted some recommendations that I hope that you'll take a look at and consider sharing with your legislative and lobbying folks as that discussion takes place in DC and around the country. because I know that your jurisdictions are involved in that discussion, and we've focused on things over the years here about increasing revenues, changing some of the way that funds are collected, mileage-based user fees, and those sorts of things. And I think some of the recommendations in this AMPO document are some of the most likely to be adopted recommendations that we've seen. And if we want to add any of those to our MPO policy positions, feel free to suggest that. The Sarasota delegation meeting is scheduled coming up. Vice Chair Nunder will be there anyway, so he's agreed to present yours, and we're waiting for the Manatee delegation meeting, and would enlist either Chair Brown, most likely Chair Brown, or possibly the new incoming Vice Chair, whoever's available to represent that our MPO at that legislative delegation meeting.
Yes.
That's I also wanted to recognize you. You heard from Tom Ratsky, but Keith Breen of our Citizens Advisory Committee is also here, and just wanted to recognize him.
Behind you there. So thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate their service on that Citizens Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And just to get to the chair report, I kind of gave a bunch of it that I was going to talk about once Mr. Secretary was going about what's been going on. And I think one of the things we saw in Manatee County, we had about 5 boats from Helene along our causeway, which in that causeway, that's the city of Bradenton boundaries, but Manatee County area and DOT road. So it didn't really matter whose jurisdiction it was. They did such a great job getting those off before Milton hit. And if any of us have ever been on any waterways, we know how darn hard it is to get boats that aren't supposed to be there. I mean, it's an act of God, and they did a great job on getting those 5, because we didn't know what was going to happen with Milton as that went through. So just again, kudos to all of the collaboration that happened within our area. As my last meeting as chair, I want to say thank you to the staff. Done a great job at walking me through this and making it easy. I still don't think, unless you've sat on this board and then maybe you do or don't know a lot of things, but you learn, and it's been good to have the staff there. So I think my second meeting, executive director was retiring and we were hiring Dave when it all started. So it was like, okay, I'm voting on something that you really don't know about. Till you've been here, you really don't understand it or learn it in what we do, because the federal government and the state government sometimes make it a little confusing, but in a good way. And we've got probably, I think, the best secretary in the state that they tried to steal away, that we're glad you stayed. Thank you to your wife for wanting to be here locally. So, but just going through things. So just really thank you to everybody. And I already recognize the members that are here visiting for alternates, and I'm sure some of them will probably be coming back for more with some of the changes that have happened in our county. But no, I think this board has done a great job, and I'm impressed. Everybody's here today, with being a holiday week. So that means that, as my wife says, that, in life, I could be doing a lot different things and would be on vacation maybe this week, but because we all put ourselves out and in the public eye, that we're all willing to sacrifice some of those family things to be here. So, and I think the public doesn't see that as much. All they see is, and say this in the right way, but there's a lot of keyboard cowards out there. And I am not a email guy. I'm a phone call guy, and I send you back, thank you for your email. Please send me a phone number. Well, probably half the people send you a phone number, the other half do not. So because those are those people that want to make up stuff, and we're really trying to work through that. And I think if you come to these meetings, you'll see that we're doing everything we can to try to make the traffic better. But sometimes success breeds more traffic. And, so the 2 counties are having great success. Let's keep that going. So I appreciate everything, and just want to thank everybody for allowing me to do this, and especially the staff, because that's where, the rubber meets the road, and we appreciate it. We will now move on to item number 6, the consent agenda. Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes, the entire consent agenda today would include minutes from the September 23rd meeting and the holiday policy update item at your spots. Of course, any board member may pull a consent agenda item for discussion. And that's what we have today. Usually we have more administrative items, but we didn't need those this time.
Do I have an approval of a consent agenda as presented?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan. A second?
Second.
All right, heard a bunch. I kind of heard Ms. Coker first. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to action items. First is 7A. It's a transportation program amendments presented by Ms. Barr for Mr. Brown.
Good morning. I'm Pam Barr with FDOT. I'm a liaison for the district.
Morning.
here. So we have some tip amendments that we have requested that be changed within the tip document. As you see it within your agenda, we have several from Manatee County and several from Sarasota County. So the first one we have is 448390-1, which is US 41 from 63rd Avenue to 53rd Avenue. This was a pedestrian crossing, and the increase was more than the 2,020% that's required for the amendment. We have 449187-1, which is State Road 90. Oh, can't read. 93 from I-75 to Terra River. It's a resurfacing project. Again, there was an increase in the construction phase. These increases were talked about earlier when LK was speaking about the costs having gone up from the time that these were first entered into the tip. The next one is 4556441, which is Tamiami Trail from Magellan Drive to 69th Bay Drive. There was a new segment that was added for lighting. Then we have 455741-1, which is State Road 684 Cortez Road from 26th Street to 301 Boulevard. These were arterial traffic management design was added into the tip so that we could do those. There was 442630-1, which is US 41 Bridge from north of State Route 64, that Haben Boulevard Bridge. This was a change in the scope. So when there's a change in scope of when it starts and ends, we have to make those changes. This is just a replacement bridge. Then there's State Route 684, Cortez Road from 26th Street to 301 Boulevard. Again, another arterial traffic management design. 475,000 was added for the design. We have another one for Manatee which also has equipment purchase, which was 456052-2, which was added into purchase equipment for Manatee County. We have 44149479-2, which is Manatee Elementary. This was sidewalk construction, and we had the construction added into the tip. For Sarasota County, we have 453538-1, which is Gulf Gate Drive to Bee Ridge Road. Again, we have arterial traffic management project. The design was added into the tip. 4551471, Minnesota Key the Bascule Bridge rehabilitation and storm hardening. This was a Protect grant application that was received. It's for the at-risk coastal infrastructure funds. And that project was added in, and it was $6,030,000 for that grant. We also added in for Sarasota 444634-2, State Route 72 from east of I-75 to Proctor. This was an add lanes and reconstruction It's the design phase, and the project was added into the tip. Any questions?
Questions? Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you kindly for the updates. On 444634-2, the State Road 72 East to Proctor. This allocation of 2.3, as I understand, is some money that we had from MPO moving into there. Assuming that it's going to cost more than that, do you happen to know how are we going to be funding the additional project costs? Is there any thoughts at this point? You know, how are we going to do that?
I believe LK's going to answer.
Secretary. yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, so there's multiple opportunities, right, Vice Chair? Obviously, through our allocations, we can look at funding the construction, and there's opportunity for partnership with Sarasota County because of the growth that's going on. We've been in conversation with your county administrator about that. And also, there's a lot of interest from your legislative delegation for addressing the capacity needs on State Road 72. So the reason we wanted to get this design programmed and started is to make sure that we are ready for any opportunity that may come to address right-of-way acquisition and construction.
Well, I think it's a great project. It's in my district, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. And we're looking forward to, getting this project underway and completed. Thank you.
Yeah, and just LK and I talked, and David and I talked about it a little bit about the projects kind of in the whole ream of things. And we think legislatively, we're all going to have opportunities to really work with our legislators over the next couple of years and maybe have, and if the cost hopefully will come down on some things, that we want to have as many things shovel ready so we can go as quick as possible. So that's something that I think is very important, that what's on this list keeps going forward while with the way the staff and the state has done to keep it moving. Any other questions?
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Mr.
I just
Secretary.
wanted to add,
Yeah.
now, all these projects that you're seeing as are new additions, right? But majority of them are technology projects. Your advanced traffic management system that we built about, I think, almost 15 years ago is kind of getting a little outdated, and all the design projects and the equipment replacement is going to get your system up to snuff, right? And looking for the advanced technology that's available now to manage traffic flow along our corridors. So I want to thank both Manatee County, Sarasota County staff and MPO staff for letting us use the extra funding that was available in the MPO box to make these projects happen. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one quick question on 455644-1. The design new segment lighting project added. Is there a cost associated with that?
Pardon me, which one again?
455644-1.
Get Miami Trail from Magellan to 39. That was a design segment that was added in for the lighting for that project.
Is there a cost associated with that?
Undoubtedly.
I didn't see anything at the moment that I had on that.
Okay.
Did you have it?
Yeah, it's a placeholder, it looks like right now. It's only $5,000 on it, but it looks like they just put it in there to be able to further fund the design for that project. So it looks like it's just starting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You will also notice on there that 455741-1 and 4559251 are actually the same thing. The first one, 741, was requested in October. The other one was in November. There is an overlap of duplication, so the first one will be deleted. So that's 4557411 will be deleted out.
Any other questions? So Chair will entertain a motion to approve the TIP amendments.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? This will require a show of hands, so all please raise your hand if you approve. Okay, anyone not approve? Carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on to 7B, the 2024 Sun Trail Priorities. We have Ryan and Nina. Do we go with the report and then have the comments, or because we have 3 comments? Do the report first, that's what I was thinking, and then go from the comments. Yes, Thank you.
Thanks, Nina Dutcher, MPO planning staff. This action item is related to the 2024 list of project priorities. And the proposed amendment is to include 2 additional segments of the Gulf Coast Trail to the 2024 list. Those 2 projects are the Warm Mineral Springs Connector in Northport and a segment of the Gateway Greenway in Manatee County. By approving this amendment today, both Northport and Manatee County would be able to pursue state SunTrail funding for these projects in the current solicitation cycle. And that cycle is open until December 19th, so just in a couple of weeks. The state SunTrail program does require that projects are eligible only if they are also prioritized by the local MPO. Both the Warm Mineral Springs Connector and the Gateway Greenway project are consistent with the MPO's long-range vision for the active transportation network. The active transportation network has at its core the Florida Gulf Coast Trail, which is also defined in the SunTrail system. Both jurisdictions, Northport and Manatee County, will be submitting priority applications for the 2025 list. However, that list does not become before the board until March of next year, so that's about 3 months too late. So by making this amendment today, including those projects, both jurisdictions will be able to pursue SunTrail funding. Thank you.
All right. Any questions?
I'll make a comment.
Yes, go
Chair.
ahead.
In anticipation of the support of this board, Northport has already completed a first draft of the grant application for SunTrail funding. And I know in the past, we've dragged our feet a little bit on this connector because of the condition of Warm Mineral Springs, particularly after Ian. We were reluctant to increase traffic to that area, but the commission did approve a plan a couple of months ago. And I think having both of these projects happen simultaneously will be a real accelerator for that area of the city. So we're really requesting the support of this board to retroactively add the Warm Mineral Springs project to the list of 2024 priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we do have some citizen comment, so I'm going to go at this time. We have John Thaxton, and you'll have 2 minutes. Just please state your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is like old homecoming for me. It's great to see everyone. Nanette, especially great to see you, and thank you for that wonderful hug. I'll be back next month. For that, at least. I'm here this morning. My name is John Thaxton. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. And I'm here to support adding the Warm Mineral Springs Legacy Trail Connector to the 2024 priority funding list to enable it for eligibility for SunTrail money. The Legacy Trail is a premier example of community collaboration, but not just collaboration in terms of activity, but also in funding. Sarasota County government, Sarasota County voters, philanthropy, municipalities, and community volunteer groups such as the Friends of the Legacy Trail are all large financial contributors. The result is a community connection in terms of social connection, physical connection, and transportation. This year, the Legacy Trail will see over 700,000 users, and not-for-profits and other agencies serving the transportation disadvantaged community are now buying properties and homes located on or near the Legacy Trail to serve their clients. We'd now like to include the state of Florida with the SunTrail funding to this partnership to connect the Legacy Trail with Warm Mineral Springs, one of the most significant cultural resources in Southwest Florida. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Louis, is it Kasiba?
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Louis Kasiba. I'm president of the Friends of the Legacy Trail. First of all, I'd like to thank the city of Northport for its work on behalf of building out the Warm Mineral Springs connector. I previously provided Mr. Hutchinson with an email during 2018, during the referendum, which passed by over 70% of the voters. We helped fund extension of the Legacy Trail to Payne Park. There was also money set aside for connecting to the city of Northport. Our vision was always to bring that connector down to Warm Mineral Springs. It would be a great opportunity for cyclists, but also to help further support the springs. What we're looking for is prioritization of the Warm Mineral Springs connector as part of the Sun Trail request that you make. It's only about it's only about 1.7 miles, so a relatively short distance. Friends of the Legacy Trail is a 501c not-for-profit. We're an all-volunteer organization. Every dime that we raise goes to supporting the trail. So we're not very affluent, we're not very wealthy, but we have committed $100,000 to build out that connector. I want to say ditto what John said, because he was more articulate and more detailed, but this would be a worthy goal to add to the prioritization list for the Sun Trail. So I ask that you do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have Charles Hines.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to address you. Charles Hines, Trust for Public Lands, Program Director for the Florida Gulf Coast Trail. So yeah, John, it's old commissioner day here for both of us.
Old.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a few more gray. I dye mine, so it's but thanks for the opportunity. And for both of these, obviously, we support your approval. Goal here is to fill in the gaps in the Florida Gulf Coast Trail, and our two counties really have some opportunities right in front of us to become a great trail area for the country to actually come in. And so support both of these and are excited to be able to apply and move forward with them. With that said, not to repeat John, so I'll squirrel over to another one, but also great progress is being made with the extension of the Legacy Trail to Nathan Benderson Park. And that will be an incredible segment, many stakeholders on that. Then with the flyover I-75, that connects us to Lakewood Ranch, and that gets us up to Manatee County, the second segment that's being added hopefully today. With that said, also in February, the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation will be celebrating the 10th year of this Sun Trail program, and it's chosen to hold their summit in Venice. So hopefully many of you will come and attend that, because that'll be a great opportunity, as Venice will be named a trail town, official trail town under this program, to expand our knowledge and also expand our support for this trail. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any comments, Vice Chair?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, Charles, I think since I've been serving on the MPO, you've been very present in this space. So thank you for bringing a lot of attention to this particular endeavor. And I think as public servants, we're charged with health, safety, and wellness of our communities. And this certainly goes a long way in encouraging people to get outside and bike, and that wellness component. And I think I remember former Commissioner Thaxton when his hair was not gray. He's kind of been around a long time too, as far as I can remember. So having two former commissioners here with a lot of institutional knowledge about Sarasota County and our community weighs very heavily with me. And to Commissioner from Northport down there, happy to support moving this forward. And thank you also for taking that proactive approach and preemptive approach and putting this before us to make it maybe a little more easier and palatable to get it moving. Very excited for that connectivity from Nathan Benderson all through Northport to the airport almost. So that's a good place to be. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. And thank you, Madam.
And yes, Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for putting this on. This January will mark the 4-year anniversary of me saying that this trail system was my priority on this board. Fortunately, I'm here for another term to actually maybe see a shovel in the ground on that priority from 4 years ago. It's critically important. Way back in the day, Charles and I talked about how there was eventually going to be a flyover from Benderson to connect to Manatee County. My first thought was, we're going to have this Manatee County trail system built. We're going to be waiting for a flyover. Now we're trying to outrun a flyover that's going to come before we start the Manatee County system at the rate we're going. The commission has committed to this trail. We put ARP money towards it. We put our own money towards it. We've worked with Representative Buchanan at the federal level and our delegation in the Tallahassee level to start securing funds. We've worked with Stantec, we've worked with Charles and his team to get this going. This is a critical missing piece in the trail system, not for Manatee County, but for the entire Southwest Florida region. Manatee County is the largest donut hole missing from really being able to bike from Pasco County to Collier County at some point in time, God willing. We need to get this going. And right now, fortunately, we had SMR help us with some outsized sidewalks and trails that pretty much get us all the way up to State Road 64. This first piece that we're discussing goes from where they stop up to Rye Preserve, which already has a trailhead set. There's parking there. There's facilities there. It's a great opportunity because 3 people just showed up here to speak. They all spoke about the Sarasota piece, the Legacy Trail piece. And rightfully so. Legacy Trail is a beautiful place. For whatever reason, I ran an ultra marathon on it back and forth. But it's a beautiful place. And you get support because of proof of concept. We in Manatee County need that proof of concept. We need our citizens to see how important a trail system is, like you all seeing it at Legacy Trail, which used to just be one little piece on a rail system down by Palmer Ranch. Now it's countywide. We need that. And once we can get that, we can have our friends of Greenway Trail System. We can have our citizens showing up here advocating for it. So any support we can get, we as a board are going to advocate to get this going. And I appreciate the inclusion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might pile on just a little bit here. Going back to the original referendum and been able to work with closely with Gulf Coast Community Foundation. They took the lead, did a great job on that. The Trust for Public Land, if it hadn't been for them, it wouldn't have happened. They came forth and they really poured their resources and efforts into it, made it happen. And really be remiss if we didn't talk about the Friends of Legacy Trail. They've just been outstanding. In fact, they've got to be one of the best friends group in the entire state of Florida. They've just worked hard to make this a reality. The other thing that's really exciting about this is the collaboration between all the organizations coming together with this common purpose. Can't wait to see the connection made to Warm Mineral Springs and in Northport. We're ready. We've been trying to get everything together that we can to buy some additional property and make that happen as a county. So we're working together closely with the city, but also with Bradenton and the city and the county. I mean, this is just a win-win-win for everyone. So glad to see that here, and thanks for the work you're putting into it.
Yes, ma'am.
Just quickly, I do want to thank everyone who's been working so long and so hard to extend the trail down into South County. And Chair Brown, whenever you're ready, I'd be happy to make a motion.
All right. So at this time, we'll have an approval of a proposed amendments to the 2024 list of priority projects to include the Sun Trail priorities. That's your motion?
Terrific. That's my motion.
So a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Carries unanimously. All right. Next is a presentation. We'll start with the MPO 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, Scenarios and Vision.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. And with me today is Taylor from Kimley Horn. He'll provide a presentation and brief overview of our progress thus far on our long range transportation plans, primarily related to the scenarios and visioning process. This is a 18-month to 2-year process that we're currently in the middle of, and we're looking forward to continuing this progress. And today she's going to provide us a brief update on progress that we've made thus far. So,
welcome.
All right, thank you so much. Good morning to the members of the board. As Ryan said, my name is Taylor Filarowski here from Kimley Horn, and I'm going to be providing a brief overview of our building block scenarios for the long range transportation plan that ultimately led to the vision that we're currently operating under. That's kind of the culmination of phase 1 of the LRTP and about to kick off phase 2. So the 2050 LRTP borrowed from the 2045 LRTP with the three of the 4 building block scenarios, which include promote economic diversity, preserve environmental health, and create vibrant places. I'll be providing a brief overview of those three scenarios, as well as the fourth scenario that we added as part of the 2050 LRTP. However, it's also important to discuss existing development trends. This is referred to as the trend scenario within the LRTP and within this presentation itself. The trend scenario is used to compare what development would look like under each of the building block scenarios with what development is currently occurring across the two counties. So you can kind of see where the priorities of each of the scenarios lies, basically on how it differs from development under the trend scenario. So what are those four scenarios? As I said, promote high value economic growth, create vibrant places, preserve environmental health. And then the fourth scenario that we added as part of the 2050 LRTP is create resilient communities. And this was based on feedback from the community, but also ended up being quite timely, obviously, with the two storms that we just had. So we'll be talking about that a little bit. For each of the scenarios, I'll give a brief overview, show how the development under this scenario would differ from the trend, and then talk about priority projects under that scenario. And that's not to say these are projects that are going to happen or that are funded, but they are exemplary of the types of projects that we would want to prioritize under each of these scenarios. So the first, promote high value economic growth, focuses on attracting high value businesses, developing educational and cultural centers, and on new technology for transportation improvements. How this scenario differs from the trend is that we see a lot more development within these economic cluster areas. As you can see, a lot of along existing transportation corridors, including the interstate. So that's just click back and forth what it looks like. Potential infrastructure projects under this scenario. Again, these are just categories of projects that this scenario would want to prioritize. Includes complete streets, multimodal improvements, premium transit, that kind of thing. Our next scenario is create vibrant places. This focuses on economic diversification to support urban centers, providing more multimodal options while reducing carbon emissions and preserving corridors for future premium transit. This scenario differs from the trend that there's a considerable development is occurring in the north part of the region, and this scenario is also a little less dense of a development than you would see under the other scenarios. Again, just focusing on areas that are already growing to kind of increase transportation options between those scenarios, because we need the density before we can provide the additional transportation options. And again, we see complete streets, multimodal improvements, lots of transit oriented types of projects under this scenario. Third scenario, preserve environmental health. This scenario focuses on safeguarding the treasured environmental assets that people are drawn to this region for, reducing carbon emissions, and really enforcing the urban growth boundary. So you'll see here, a lot of the development here is focused on within the urban growth boundary and staying out of more environmentally sensitive areas of the region. So again, just these, I should have mentioned this earlier, the red dots represent the reallocated growth for all of these scenarios. So you can kind of see how they differ from the trend. Potential infrastructure projects under this scenario, a few specific here: Florida Gulf Coast Trail, water taxi, again, more environmentally friendly types of transportation development projects. And finally, create resilient community scenario. This scenario focuses on disaster response and recovery and building communities that are able to both withstand storms and recover quickly from storms. This scenario is probably the biggest change that you will see from the development trend and from all the other scenarios. As you can see, the red dots, which represent reallocated development, are really focused on the interior of the regions, away from the coastal areas and in more resilient areas of the region. Potential infrastructure projects under this scenario: complete streets, resilient bridges, lots of resiliency mitigation types of projects. So as I noted, these are 4 building block scenarios that we presented to the community to kind of get feedback on what they wanted for the future of the region. And ultimately, we ended up, well, I'll give a brief overview of that, of the outreach activities. We had a survey that was available online and in person. We received almost 700 responses to that survey, 700 complete responses, I should say. We also held a workshop towards the end of May and received over 25 attendees to that workshop. And what did we hear? We heard existing transportation options are lacking. There is a desire for additional transit options, additional bike ped options within the region. The environment was a clear theme throughout all 4 scenarios. Even when discussing something like promote high value economic growth, folks wanted to really focus on how can we preserve the environment underneath this scenario. And finally, and most importantly, the public prioritized elements of all of the scenarios. There was not one clear winner scenario that we could say, okay, this is the vision for the region's future. As you can see, survey results, preserve environmental health was slightly more preferred during the workshop, create vibrant places was slightly more preferred. So the vision as we are understanding it now is a kind of a combination of those 2 building block scenarios. The preferred vision combines elements of all those scenarios, but with a slight edge to create vibrant places and preserve environmental health. And this vision will be used to guide the remainder of the LRTP development. Right now, we're calling this vision creating a balanced future, which focuses on safeguarding treasured environmental assets and preserving the unique environment that drew residents and visitors to the region in the first place. This is development under this new vision. And as you can see, it mirrors a lot of the development of preserve environmental health and create vibrant places, diverting development east of the interstate into that interior area where there's already existing development occurring. And this will both help preserve environmental health and increase the potential for additional transportation options. This is just an overview of, again, what I already talked about, but what types of projects would be preferred under each scenario. As you can see, there are some project types that address more scenarios than others. And then, so that is kind of the culmination of phase 1 and developing the vision for the LRTP. Next steps include evaluating the transportation system as part of phase 2. And we will, of course, continue to seek public input throughout the remainder of this process, including the next workshop, which is on December 10th at the Morgan Family Community Center. We also have a website with all this information summarized. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Taylor. Questions, Commissioner Ballard?
Just a quick question. What is contemplated by the term premium transit?
Premium transit is things like light rail. So right now in the region, the transit options are the bus, the ferry. So things like light rail, maybe even heavy rail, bus rapid transit, just additional transit options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ahern Cook?
On your, I don't know what page it is, project applicability, and it has sidewalks and crosswalks. The promote high value economic growth is not checked there. Curious why? Because I think sidewalks can very often promote economic growth and value.
Yeah, I would have to take another look at that, but I would. Are you talking about sidewalks and crosswalks?
Correct.
Promote high value economic growth. Okay. Yeah, I would have to take a look at why we didn't include that, but I can get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I guess I'm confused about all of the scenarios are planning for what's not the trend in where the population is going. So how does that help us? Don't we need to plan for where the population is going, or are we trying to redirect the population against the trend?
The scenarios represent where development would be prioritized under that scenario. So the trend represents what is currently existing. The scenarios are not looking to redirect all of that development. So you'll see in some of the scenario maps that we still have, and I'll just go to the vision map. Those blue dots represent development that is already going to occur. The red dots represent where we would want to encourage further development to achieve the goals of the vision.
Okay, so how are we doing that?
It's really transportation investments that would come out of this and result in be included in our cost feasible plan, which is probably going to be a shorter list in the future. And these concepts are brought to you for your consideration and your input, because whatever our workshops say, that's input from the public for you to provide the guidance and direction for this plan. I mean, this is an MPO plan that is the board's plan. And so if we are not trying to redirect growth, or what we're trying to do is redirect or focus transportation investments in support of policies and objectives that you all adopt or have adopted.
So if we do those things, then we're likely to encourage the growth in those areas.
Yes, creating vibrant places, for example, has been a strategy in the past. It was part of our 2045 plan. And it's been a regional strategy for a long time. And we've seen, great results in not just our existing communities like downtown Sarasota and downtown Bradenton, downtown Venice, on the islands where placemaking is actually happening, but we've seen successes out in new communities, Lakewood Ranch. As the area grows, if we focus on transportation investments that support vibrant places, then that also, per our mashup vision that we are currently operating under, that also supports high-paying jobs and supporting our airport and our port and higher education investments. So trying to put transportation investments into projects that support those objectives, I think, has been the strategy.
Yeah, I think we're under no illusion that we're going to simply, solve, Eastern growth. I don't think that's what this is attempting to do. It's, each of those dots though represents population growth in those areas. It's simply investing, incentivizing in locations where we think we can make a substantial difference and promote those types of changes. So no, we're not attempting to change the way that the trend is going.
I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea to incentivize the ideal kind of trends, but we also have to live with what the trends really are.
And I think the model, we're working through our transportation model with the state as well. And I don't think you will see still widespread development and proposed expansions to the network in Eastern County parts. So, yeah.
I think Mr. Secretary has a comment, and then we'll go to Commissioner Ballard.
Mr. Chair, going in line with Mayor Alpert's comments, right? So the current trends for growth are going towards the east, and we are all seeing that, right? One of the reasons why we were looking at State Road 72 is with all the growth that's happening in the South Sarasota County and even Manatee County, it's all to the east of 75. It's good that they're putting this vision as part of the LRTP, but one thing that I want to point out is this will not become a reality if local plans don't adjust accordingly, right? So all the local communities have to say, we want to prioritize redevelopment on the east side and then create consistent with what the LRTP is being developed. So if you as a board are going to accept this, then the local community plans have to adjust accordingly, because if they don't, then your transportation investment plans that you're developing is not going to be in line with the land development plans that you have. So you need to think about it, from a local perspective as you're working towards the long-range transportation plan.
And I think that would be something, just before we go to Commissioner Ballard, that as we sit on our boards, you've really got to try to, as a representative, explain that and how things work. And some of us, it'll be a little bit more implemented because cities don't control, other than the urban core, maybe growth, the out parts of it, but that would also give more opportunity for communities to do things that you don't have to come to a downtown. You have other opportunities. Commissioner Ballard.
So I just wanted to say that I think Mayor Alpert makes a really great point, because in an environment where you have limited resources, if we're pushing this ideal form of growth or this ideal development, and it's completely contrary to what's actually happening on the ground, then we're putting tons of limited resources toward pushing something that's not actually happening, while starving the areas that are actually growing and in need of transportation improvements. Isn't that potentially true? I mean, and Secretary Nandum makes a really good point as well, that, you know, we do have to all go back to our communities and say, we want to grow in this way, I suppose, if we're adopting this ideal plan.
And the long range plan is kind of a mashup of what's actually happening on the ground and things that could be done to make the transportation system work better and support the existing community visions and the comprehensive plans that are adopted, you know, economic development, tourism, et cetera. One of the things that it also does is identify needs based on projected growth and where it's going to happen, and potential resources available to build the infrastructure that would be needed to serve who's coming. And I'll tell you right now that it always will, and it does, as your analyses do. We don't have enough money to provide the type of infrastructure that we are used to having going forward. If we're adding 400,000 more people in our 2-county region over the next 20 to 25 years, they're going to probably have a little more congestion than what we really like to have. If we can provide premium transit in certain corridors and get some people out of the cars, that's going to put a dent in future congestion. But we will see a needs analysis and a revenue projection analysis that shows a big gap. And you know, I don't hear a lot of planning to substantially increase the amount of money being collected on the new development, and that's all based on, you know, plans and analyses that are done at the local level. And so that's where we will see a gap in funding for new needs. And this is where Secretary Nandum has said many, many times, we need to promote and support land use decisions and make land use decisions that will lessen the impacts on our transportation system.
But I also think it's the chicken or the egg. You know, do you put the bus route that sits for 5 years that has nobody on it because it will come? Or do you not do something, or the infrastructure is not there? You know, so it's a fine balance. And this, I think, is just giving some opportunity to say, if this happens, how are we going to be prepared for it? And that's very important, you know. And I mean, I don't think you can go back and say, oh, well, they didn't do this, this, or this, because it's the chicken or the egg. What did we do? And, you know, people want to be here.
Right.
So that's a great presentation. Thank you, Taylor. All right, we'll move on to Ryan with the Barrier Island implementation plan.
Sure, thank you. So yeah, we're just going to give you a few brief overviews on 2 studies that we just kicked off. So there won't be too much information on these, but I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss the Barrier Island implementation plan. This is an effort that we kicked off last month. It's kind of a building on the FDOT Barrier Island traffic study that took place over the last 4 or 5 years, and actually looking at some implementable options from that plan, but also looking at a larger scope within our Barrier Island communities. So some of the objectives they should seem obvious, I think, but I think really looking at it, it's addressing congestion, improving mobility. That's the #1 goal of this. We're well aware of the community's approach and decision to kind of look at how we address congestion and how we access our island communities. So it's fairly limited, right? To major barrier islands, we've got 3 or 4 major facilities all the way from northern Manatee County to southern Sarasota County. There's not a lot of opportunities to come and go from the islands. The water taxi is certainly a welcomed alternative to some of these routes, but we're looking at ways that we can improve those things that are actually manageable. A lot of ideas came out of the Barrier Island traffic study. We want to dive into some of those more intensely. Promoting resilient development. Obviously, we just went through several substantial events that impacted our island communities as well as our inland communities. We want to take a chance to look at how we can promote and rebuild in a resilient manner. So we're not going back and rebuilding these transportation facilities year after year. Minnesota Key comes to mind in some locations where we are consistently rebuilding facilities that are inundated or dealing with substantial disruption. So how do we rebuild in a more resilient manner? And overall, just enhancing the visitor and resident experience. We've heard, different perspectives from visitors as well as those who live on the island year round. And we think both of those can substantially improve by introducing pedestrian facilities, seamless transit connectivity, meaning that we know of the on-demand service that's out there now. We're also looking at expanding those, as well as micromobility options, meaning scooters. We know lots of golf cart activity already out on the islands. How do we manage those influxes of new transportation models? So how do we do it? How do we do it? So there's some of the activities and objectives that we're looking at doing. Overall, it's aiming to provide actionable recommendations that can be implemented easily. Easily is maybe a loose term, but actionable is the important one. We've heard lots and lots of things that you could potentially do, like building a new bridge, for example, to the islands. Overly actionable? Probably not. Very, very expensive, and the impacts are substantial in today's age. But how do we go out there and improve the things that we can actually take a look at? So the schedule for this, it's about similar. It's about a year schedule. We're looking at wrapping this up in August of 2025. Really, the important date is there in the middle. Looking at prioritized projects in May or June of next year, which will be able to be implemented and moved into our 2050 long-range plan. So recommendations made from this will be able to be moved into our cost feasible plan and directly implemented following the adoption of the long-range plan. The study area, while the original Barrier Island traffic study looked from Anna Maria down to the St. Armands area, we've also included Siesta Key Village and down through Manasota for this recommendation. I know Sarasota County in the past had gone out and asked for additional funds to study the southern portion of the Barrier Islands. We've taken at least some of the money we have available. It's not as much as the Barrier Island traffic study costed, but we're able to take a look at some of those major facilities down in South County as well, so that we're making recommendations on the broader scale of the Barrier Islands. And really, the major step is looking at least one road inland from the Barrier Islands, so US 41 in most cases, so that we can see some of the connectivity issues or potential delays that are related to the network on the mainland that would impact the islands. Some of the major key deliverables, we're obviously reviewing previous work, making sure that we're consistent with that. Also selected case studies, so examples of where implementation strategies have worked throughout the state, throughout the country. It's certainly important. More understanding of resiliency efforts, what can truthfully be done, not making kind of open promises about things that could potentially be done, but real actionable resiliency work that could be implemented. Obviously, creating congestion relief plan, really focusing on this at intersections. Key intersections are important in terms of understanding congestion. Free flow is okay in lots of places. Where we see the congestion is at our intersections on our island communities, both on and off the islands. And then obviously at the very end, creating a toolkit, we can come up and say, these are ideas that we think you can implement at a local level. You all can apply to us for additional funding, both state and federal, to be able to go out and implement some of these things. So with that, I'll happily take any questions. As we said, we're just getting started. We've collected some data. We've got some good data points from the process of reviewing that as we speak, and hopefully get you some good projects and recommendations here for the next year.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Siesta Key is where I work, and the South Bridge has been under repair. There's been some concern by some of the folks out there about an evaluation of the condition of that bridge. There seems to be some extensive repairs going on with all the debris being hauled off the key, as well as new construction materials coming onto the key. It's been an interesting experience. We are looking at, and so we would appreciate if you could give us an evaluation of that bridge and maybe what the lifespan might be. Looking at the 5-year forecast for expenditures, notice that the North Bridge is going to be is on the list for repair. I think in 2006, is it?
26.
2006?
Huh?
26.
26.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. We're already late, aren't we? Anyway, with our experience of the repair on the South Bridge, which happens to be 2 bridges, and the anticipated repair of the North Bridge, which is only a 2-lane bridge to begin with. we'd be very interested in seeing the detailed plans on what needs to be done and how you plan on doing it. Because if the entire island is only going to be heading south, it's going to be a rather miserable experience.
That's excellent question for our secretary, and the state is the main maintainer of our bridge facilities and the main funding source for those. So I could defer to LK on the
Mr.
plans.
Secretary.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So Commissioner, those two bridges are owned by the state, and we do inspections every 2 years to meet the federal requirements. And that's why you see those programmed repair projects for those two bridges. So let me go back, talk to my staff, and provide you the lifespan of the remaining lifespan of the bridges.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, am I?
Yes, sir.
Ryan, glad to see it moving south to the South Sarasota County line. Minnesota Key Road got washed out again. And the issue for me is timing, because that road is not passable at this time. And so folks can't get to their homes. And we also have the beach there and several amenities, and it's a public safety issue. What's the timeline on this study? Because there's just, it's up in the air. Last time Adalia washed it out, we got back and repaired it very quickly. Within 6 weeks. It was a pretty amazing effort there. But here we are back to square one on it. But we need some answers as quickly as possible as to way forward. A lot of community comments on this. So what's the timeline on this, and what's the prospect?
So yeah, I said that actionably, where we're looking at, formally the study will conclude in September, August of next year, but we're looking at having recommendations in the spring of this year. Really, I don't want to make any promises in terms of Minnesota Road and looking at how that's going to be impacted and who's going to rebuild and at what cost and what it's going to look like. But I'm certain that there will be recommendations made, that there was intent to extend the limit to that specifically for that purpose. So we will work as quickly as we can and as diligently we can to come up with some real recommendations, though some may not be overly favorable. I think there is, going to have to be consideration of the cost of continually repairing that facility in its current state, right? Are we going to have to substantially elevate? What would the impacts to the surrounding area, to the environment be? There's obviously lots of decisions to be made in terms of how we deal with those issues, and certainly we'll continue to look at them and make some kind of a wider range, just like a lot of our other work, provide options for you all to take a look at and provide feedback on before we make formal recommendations. And then obviously, once approved, your county and your staff will be able to forward those recommendations to us for formal funding. So we'll do as best as we can to move this forward.
I'm going to need your cell phone number for the folks.
Sure.
Let them know that spring is when you're going to maybe come back with some recommendations.
Absolutely.
No, but I appreciate the effort there, and we've got to work to get that rebuilt as soon as possible. But yeah, we got to take a good hard look at that.
Vice Mayor Haycock.
Yeah, Brian, Dave, thanks for getting this going. We met last summer and suggested that it would make sense to resurrect the study, and I sure appreciate that. And just to reiterate, the big issue on Longboat Key is getting off the key, mostly for our workers, and mostly off the north end. So I know you have some metrics we can look at and see whether it's gotten better or worse. It looks like it's gotten worse. And with some of the redevelopment on Bradenton Beach, maybe there's some opportunities to look at where the constraints are and whether we can rebuild those in a way that helps getting traffic off the island.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at it a quarter mile as a segment. So we've got quarter mile data for all facilities on the island. So we are looking at where those constraints are happening. To no surprise, most of them are occurring at the intersections. So GMD and 789 at Cortez is a great reason why we're seeing consistent backups, as well as the parking facilities out there are also generating lots of traffic. So how we address those and providing some internal data for you all as well. And once we get that synthesized, we'll certainly provide that to you all.
And then just as a piece of information, I had asked LK a couple of years ago to make sure we had metrics around when we put the roundabout in on Ringling. And he provided that, I think, about 6 months ago, and it proved that it's working. So the getting off the island on the south end is better now than it was before the roundabout. And so I'm happy to admit that we were wrong and complaining about that so much. And appreciate the work you all put into it.
And
Commissioner,
So I was just wanted to, my question goes off of the previous question from Vice Mayor Haycock and also from Commissioner Nunder as well. So on page 3, I guess, of your backup material, it has this red outline, and I assumed that was the study area, which does not include the Ringling Bridge and the base of it more particularly. As we saw in the last 3 hurricanes, that area did, maybe this is a question for Mr. Nandum, that area is really prone to flooding. And when you're looking at those connection points, that's a really big important one. And I hope that's included in on the study.
Yeah, we can certainly look at expanding that. I know Little Ringling is also in design and being constructed as well. So yeah, absolutely. We can look at anything. I would say typically on average, we're taking the first major roadway off of the island. So I can confirm with our team, but I am fairly certain.
Yeah, in addition to Little Ringling,
Yeah.
Big Ringling.
Yeah. So the first road off the mainland would be 41.
Okay.
So that would be covered.
Okay, that's a really,
Yeah.
because this is looking at critical transportation and interconnection, and that's absolutely critical.
Absolutely.
As that area does flood.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Just briefly, one of the things that we will try to do in this study and in our resilience effort and the LRT generally is incorporate lessons learned. Longboat Key undergrounded their utilities, and they, I think, have thought that that was pretty successful in what it did for that type of infrastructure. We're not going to underground our transportation system, obviously, but there are what can be done, what's worked in the past. FDOT's learned a lot in the last few years. And I think the other point is, as Secretary Nanum has said, when you make land use decisions, you can anticipate with some positive expectations of that you're going to be right, what the impacts are going to be. When a new hotel gets built, and if everyone's going to arrive in a rental car and have their own parking place to get there, then that's going to add to the traffic in a constrained community.
I also think that it's something we talked about earlier is the water transportation. And what we can do is to really try to tie, we have the waterway that's together. A lot of communities don't. So when you look at it, going from downtown Bradenton to downtown Sarasota and stops in between and, back and forth, we always look at, you do some ferries or you do some transit buses or those things. But again, that still adds traffic. If we're taking a lot of the tourism off the road, it makes it a lot easier for the workers and the other homeowners. So I really think that's something, in my opinion, it's worked well for us in Manatee County. Obviously, the storms put a hiccup in it, but I think that's something that if the 2 counties look together, it can probably do some big things, and while still supporting the businesses, because that's one of the biggest things is we want to support especially our smaller mom and pop businesses that may have been hurt worse. And unfortunately, in my other business that we deal with, we're dealing with a family on Holmes Beach that was probably 7 or 8 years away from making a decision. Small mom and pop, little trinket type store that's closing now. So and that's what we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose the mom and pop things. And the more we can drive to them without traffic, the more opportunity they can survive. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I want to make a couple of comments about resiliency, right? So back 20 years ago when Andrew hit Miami, right? So community.
20 years ago?
Well,
30 years ago.
32 years ago. I'm sorry. 32 years ago. Time flies. By the way, I did have my 20-year anniversary with the department.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So maybe that's why that number is still ringing in my mind. 32 years ago. So, we've amended our design standards, right? For bridges, for signals, for light poles, everything, right? and communities, updated their structural design standards. And what we are seeing is, even if it is a big wind event, right, our structures are doing better, both on the infrastructure side and the building side, right? But what we are observing now is flooding. Flooding has become a big issue for our communities, not only from a drainage perspective, but also from community perspective, right? So I think a lot more focus on the resiliency should be more so on flooding and drainage more than the structural side of it. So.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Secretary, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I think over the past 3 months, we are now acutely aware of the flooding and some of the stormwater management systems that probably really need to be looked at. Some of the information and standards that we're using are decades old. So I think anytime that you can weigh in on those things would be, I'm guessing, appreciated by most of us in this room. And certainly that approach to proactive, we know we're getting flooding. This is Florida, we're going to get hurricanes, but how we manage that is probably the conversation that we're all very, very interested in. So anytime you could weigh in, like I said, I'm sure we'd be very appreciative of it.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Ed Smith Stadium Planning Study, Ryan.
So I just want to follow up on this as well. We also recently kicked off the Ed Smith Stadium planning study. So as you may know, back in our 2045, if you aren't aware, 2045 LRTP identified 3 major planning studies surrounding our minor league and facilities and spring training facilities, LECOM, Ed Smith, and Cool Day Park down in Northport. This is the second of those studies. We recently completed LECOM the middle of this year with some great recommendations and hopefully moving forward actionable projects from that study as well. So with that, the city of Sarasota applied 2 years in a row for this, and we were able to accommodate this study into our work program and our unified planning work program, our budget, to accommodate this during this year. So provide a brief overview of this as well. So the study area of this primary target area is surrounding obviously Ed Smith Stadium, but from 7th Street on the north side to Lockwood Ridge, we've also discussed with the city potentially moving that further out to Beneva. And we tend to agree with all the activity happening at Bobby Jones. We're looking at extending that to the east, down to Fruitville Road on the south side and US 301 on the west. So pretty comprehensive area that we're looking at making recommendations to. So the objectives for this study, evaluate the existing traffic and transportation conditions in the area. So that's obviously an important aspect of what we're looking at. So making recommendations to the transportation system is something that we're going to look to do, and ultimately increasing traffic, not only automobile traffic, but foot traffic, bike ped activity, as well as transit activity in the region, make it a more multifaceted location. Identify existing and anticipated deficiencies. So where are we falling short in certain areas? Is it backing up congestion? Do we not have enough connections to our sidewalks or bike lanes? Is there not enough transit stops in the area? So understanding those deficiencies better. Working with city, county staff, and stakeholders and residents. That's certainly a major one. Any of these studies that we've worked with, we've had some great experience with City of Bradenton in the past and getting great feedback from Mayor Brown, but also their staff in terms of ongoing activities in the area. That was certainly vital in understanding what was happening in the area. So we want to make sure we're working with you all closely as we work through this study. And then recommending solutions using complete streets principles in short, medium, and long term. We've had pretty good success in the past breaking these in time frame, the things that we can go out and hopefully do tomorrow, all the way up to those long-term implementation strategies. So, complete working of say Tuttle Avenue, for example. Not to say that's going to happen, but something that would require years and years of planning, right-of-way acquisition, et cetera. So ranging those efforts from short-term, medium, up to long-term, and giving you all similarly a kind of toolkit to be able to go out and say, these are the projects that we want to do right away, and hopefully get them into our work program and prioritization process. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Ultimately aims to propose and more inclusive and efficient transportation options, and accommodates the various needs of commuters, enhances the overall accessibility to the region. So that's what we're looking to do. Some key deliverables for this as well. A memo of existing conditions, opportunities, and constraints, certainly understanding where our constraints are, but also opportunities for improvement. So that memo will be generated kind of a standalone. a traffic analysis, certainly looking at speed data, LOS data, and making sure we fully understand the data points within the transportation network. It will be important. A complete streets toolkit and implementation plan and funding and grant matrix. So coming up with ways that not only are we creating understanding what things that we could actually implement, but also how we're going to plan on funding. So a combination of local, state, federal funds, both formula and discretionary, how we go about funding those efforts, set a prioritization of short, long, and medium and long-term solutions, and then working into some potential renderings and fact sheets about locations. I think we've budgeted up to 10, so potentially providing some cross sections and improvements on some facilities in that area. So those are the main deliverables for that effort. As I said, we'll be moving through these. Both of these just kicked off within the last month. As we get through some of the entry points, we'll be providing updates at these at each of your meetings coming forward. So we appreciate any feedback you have right now, and we'll have any questions.
I just stay with our study that we did up at LECOM, and you look at, is it a Major League Baseball study? Is it a city study? Is it an area study? And I really think that what we came out of it with, even though baseball's 6 weeks and there is some minor league games and different things for the 6 weeks of spring training and after that, the minor league, but you really got to look how you're going to engage an area. And I think that is where it started. Now, we don't want to just put it on a shelf and let it sit, because, in our part of it, it's how we make the connectivity from LECOM to Village of the Arts to the downtown to the Riverwalk. And in a city of our size, everybody wants to pull their car up and park right in front of where they're going. Where you go to a bigger city, a Pittsburgh, because of the Pirates and that, you'll walk 2 miles to get somewhere. So that's what we've got to get the mindset. But if we don't have the safety aspect of it, then people aren't going to do it. So I think that's where the collaboration and for LECOM part of it. So I'm excited to see what you come out of it with the next ones, because I think that builds off for all of us. And that's an important aspect going forward. So thank you. Moving on, if there's no other questions. Storm recovery progress and needs, Ryan.
This is just a really quick update, and this is more of an opportunity for you all to cover any other storm options. I know LK's got a video for us for project updates, so I won't take up too much time with this, but I did want to say that we did at our last TAC meeting and CAC meeting reached out to each of our each of your staffs and asked if they needed any assistance from the MPO. We've made ourselves available, whether it's out on the street or helping with grants or whatever it might be, that our team was available to assist in any way we could. And we were able to pass that along. So we still are, our team's here to assist just like anyone else throughout this process. So please feel free to let us know if there's anything that you need from the MPO side. We're continuing to work with partners at DOT to make sure that we're meeting those. You'll hear a bit more about this under project updates and potential delays. I think we've got a lot of those worked out, and then updates on FDOT projects. So that's really all I have on that. Don't want to take up too much time. So.
Good. All right. Any questions, Mr. Ron?
No, what I like to do is just basically give a quick update what's going on in Manatee County as far as storm recovery, since we're on that subject before the secretary shows this video. Just let everyone know about 7,000 residences and businesses were impacted in Manatee County. They 7 destroyed, about 5,000 what made damage. Most of those impacts were residential. Debris removal is ongoing. As of the 22nd, we've had over 30,000 loads totaling 1.7 million cubic yards of debris hauled off in Manatee County. And we're well on our way to probably reach 3.0 million cubic yards. That's more than Ian and Irma combined. And we've done that in a very quick amount of time, removing that debris. About 187 state and county traffic signals were damaged. Repairs to the county traffic signals were almost complete. State repairs are ongoing. In Manatee County, we had 755 county streetlights that were damaged. We're at about 65% repair on those, getting those completed. And about 16,500 signs were damaged. And an estimate assessment is ongoing, repairs being done, and replacement work. We're at about 25% complete on that. So to say the least of this storm, the storms did some damage is an understatement to both counties. But we thought it just is some informational for the MPO board to hear this morning about what's going on in Manatee County. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, because everything that we talk about affects transportation. And that's basically what this board is there to do. And again, that's what I want to reach out to the public. If you're looking right now or watching, patience is a virtue that we need to get through. It's only been 6 weeks. And what Florida Power and Light started out, what our emergency management systems did at the beginning in both counties, got us to a great place. Now it's just a little bit slower. So, you know, and I don't know that either the cities or the counties could have done much better with the storm debris, you know, and it's going, and some of us are going to be done a little bit sooner because of the size of our municipalities and the county, but the counties, I think, are going to be ongoing for more months and months because of the size, just the volume. So, you know, great job by everybody. And I think, you know, obviously starting up at the governor all the way down to all municipalities and counties in between. So appreciate that. All right, moving on to FDOT. Welcome again.
Yes, I'm back again. At this point, we're going to present to you the draft tentative 5-year work program. On November 14th, we ran a snapshot of what our draft tentative work program would be for this next year. The draft tentative work program shows jobs that will be forecasted for July 1st of 2025, and they will end at June 30th, 2030. So it's a 5-year work program. The process to develop this work program began back when you approved your list of priority projects, which was in March, which is what Ryan was talking about earlier, about putting things on the list of priority projects. With the draft tentative, we will be having a public hearing, which will be the week of December 9th through the 13th, with an in-person meeting being the 11th of December from 10 to 12. We will have the in-person in Bartow at our district office, and also in our Southwest area office in Fort Myers. If there are any questions, I know we had some things that didn't show up right away on the draft tentative, but that's still a work in progress. As the word says, it is draft.
Brian.
Sure, absolutely. We did receive also a summary of changes to that, and we're working through that currently. So we're well aware of things that are incorporated into the work program. I'm working through that now. You'll see, you know, you really have to look at the timing of some of these things. There are, to remember the number of projects that are currently funded in current year. So 2025, that will not show up in the draft tentative. I want to make that clear because that first year is now 2026. So if you've got something funded for construction or design in 2025, it will not show up in the draft tentative. The draft tentative starts in 2026. So it's a future forecast of the work that we're doing. You'll see a number of projects in there that were included, anything from resurfacing to trails, to additional capacity. And some of those changes that you see today are also incorporated in that. So we really are working through this, and we like working with the state on making sure our priorities that were prioritized are being funded through the program. But we still have some work to do to make sure that we're financially sound, we've got our money in the right places, and making sure that we've got the funding where your staff needs it in the right years. So it's all about timing. As things get through design, we want to make sure we've got construction lined up right after. We don't like seeing a lot of delays. We call it keeping our pipeline of projects intact, and we'll continue to work on doing that over the next few months. So thank you, and I think you're going to show the video now, right?
Yes, we have a presentation to show you a little bit more about our draft tentative work program. Oh.
I hear it.
Yeah, couldn't see it.
This is an annual process for anyone that might not be aware that every year, and it takes a look at the next 5 years.
Yes, it drops the current year off. And then it's a rolling view.
Yes.
More than 23 million people call Florida home and 140 million visiting our great state last year. Reliable transportation infrastructure is critical to our state's economy, livability, and resiliency. Florida's multimodal transportation system includes roadways, bridges, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, airports, seaports, spaceports, rail lines, and transit. Working with our unique and diverse communities across the state to meet the transportation needs of residents and visitors. State and local transportation officials work together to develop plans and innovative strategies to improve safety and mobility for all users. These plans are carried out by the 5-year work program. The work program contains projects in different stages: planning, project development and environment, design, right-of-way, construction, and maintenance. Through the work program process, the state's transportation priorities are established. The Florida Department of Transportation consists of 7 districts and the Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. The work program is developed through these districts working with local governments, metropolitan planning organizations, other agencies, and the public. After work program, public hearings are held in each FDOT district. Public comments have been accepted. Local governments have endorsed the plan, and the Florida Transportation Commission and state legislators have approved it. The official 5-year work program is adopted by the Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation on July 1st, the first day of the state's fiscal year. As FDOT develops and updates each year's work program with residents and government partners, it is understood that next July 1st, the current year of the plan is complete, and a new 5th year will be added on. The yearly update produces the new tentative 5-year work program. The work program assures we have a prioritized program of transportation choices that result in a better quality of life for the residents and visitors to this beautiful state.
So are there any questions on the draft tentative work program?
Anything? All right, thank you. Moving on to
For the next?
the next, yep,
Yes.
project updates.
So the next, yeah, you need to stay there. So with Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, there were some delays. When this list was made up, it was made back in October. At that point, there were some people that were still being moved to do the work on the hurricane so that they were putting other things behind. But at this point in time, pretty much everybody is on track. If they are not, they do intend to be on track by January. So this list was a preliminary prior to, and people have been moving very quickly. So with that, as Elkin was talking about having another video to talk about what we have done with Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, we'd like to present this video.
Hurricane Helene made landfall on September 27th as a Category 4 storm, inundating Florida's Gulf Coast and the Barrier Islands with sand, causing millions in damage. One of the hardest hit areas was Bradenton Beach, where State Road 789, Gulf Drive, was washed out.
Here in Bradenton Beach, one of the things we want to do is get this road fixed as soon as possible.
And FDOT did. A project that could have taken weeks was completed in just days. Crews from Manatee, Bartow, Fort Myers, and Heartland Ops worked around the clock to clear and repair 16 miles of highway, aided by the Emergency Operations Center.
Our FDOT team here in District One jumped into action under the leadership of District One Secretary L.K. Nandum and immediately started doing damage assessments. We brought our people, our equipment, they all swarmed the area and started moving sand as quickly as possible.
Nearly 41,000 cubic yards of sand, equivalent to 2,700 dump trucks, were removed. Just 13 days later, on October 9th, Hurricane Milton, a Category 3 storm, hit the same area, further exacerbating the community.
Handling two hurricanes back to back is a lot of strain out of employees, but they were there, they responded and took care of our communities. I'm so thankful to be part of this team. And I'm so thankful to be part of FDOT because every district came in to help us out.
With help from local, state, and federal partners, including law enforcement and transportation crews from Alabama and South Carolina, FDOT shifted to debris removal.
Truly amazing. Like there's no words that can describe that response. There's nothing more important to FDOT than getting our communities, the people that we serve, back to normal. And aiding them in that recovery and helping them get their lives back to normal is one of the most rewarding things we can do as public servants. We're truly proud to do it.
All right, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the 2025 elections appointments, starting with 9A, election of chair and vice chair. Because the outgoing chair is from Manatee County, the incoming chair must be from Sarasota County by our rules. Traditionally, the chairperson is assumed to be the previous vice chair, but other members may be nominated and elected for that position. Is there any other nominations for chair besides our vice chair, Commissioner Nunder? Hearing none, we will, do we have to do a vote to get a second on that, or is it just an automatic roll up? Should we do it?
Suggest a vote.
Okay, all right, so do I have a motion?
Motion to nominate Commissioner Joe Nunder.
Okay,
Second.
second, all right, thank you. I heard Mayor Ron. All right, or Chair Ron. Any other discussion? Any opposed? Hearing none, it rolls up. So congratulations. All right. Now we will move on to vice chair because the outgoing chair is from vice chair is from Sarasota County. The incoming vice chair must be from Manatee County. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I'll second that.
I would be willing to do it if there's no other Manatee County people that want to do it.
Most other Manatee County people sitting here right now are not currently a member of the MPO, so.
Brand new, so I would accept to continue because I think that if that's acceptable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Second.
all right, thank you. Is there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so thank you very much. All right.
Seats.
Yeah. All right, so next is 9B, appointments to Metropolitan Planning Organization and Advisory Council, MPOAC. Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have a recommendation. I'd like to nominate Mayor Gene Brown for the MPO position.
Can't get away with it. Yeah, all right. And yes, I would be glad to do that because you took that for us last year. And I appreciate you doing that. And I think there could be a lot of interesting meetings and changes going on in the MPOAC over the next year. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I might suggest that you also incorporate some alternates.
Okay.
Such as the chair,
Okay.
the vice chair would be the serving. So the chair and the vice chair, well, that would cover you twice. So
Right.
I would ask
Is there a
maybe
third
one
alternate
other
that would be
person
interested
from
in?
Manatee that might be willing to, or either county that might be willing to serve as an alternate.
No, it doesn't have to be. 'Cause
I nominate Commissioner Jennifer Ahern Hatch.
To be the
Alternate.
An
alternate.
alternate,
Yeah,
alternate.
alternate in case. Okay. All right. So that would be the slate. Can we do the slate of that, or does it have to be
You can do
voted separately?
Any way that you would
Okay,
like to.
so
Chair.
I would be the member, and then the first alternate would be the chair, and then Commissioner Ahern.
And then the vice
Yeah.
chair
Right.
as the
But-
main alternate, and then backup alternates. And I think last year we had a couple of instances where we, sought out someone who might be available.
If there wasn't, all three of us weren't available. All right, so we have a motion and a second to have that slate. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Obviously not.
Thank you.
All right, so appointments to the Suncoast Trail Transportation Planning Alliance. Mr. Hutchinson will also lead this discussion, and then we will vote.
Sure, the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance used to be known as the MPOs of West Central Florida Chairs Coordinating Committee, and it is a twice a year meeting. The staff meets every month virtually, and it's a coordination with the Tampa Bay region, also Polk County, Citrus Hernando, Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Sarasota, Manatee. And so the next meeting is December 6th. I believe Chair Brown is planning to attend that. So next year, this is another one where we would look for our main rep and a couple of alternates to be able to go to the meetings are usually held at FDOT's offices off of McKinley, so near Fowler Avenue. And we've actually hosted them down here a few years back. That could happen again, where we took them to the Benderson Rowing Center building and had a meeting there. So I think that's one where it could be the chair, or it can be any member willing to serve.
Chair-elect, do you have a preference on that?
No, I mean, is there any interest from any of the board here that would want to serve on this particular board? Is there any interest for the good of the order here? I mean, I'm happy to do it if you need to, and maybe we need a backup.
Right. Well, chair, vice chair, and
Okay.
then
Okay. All right. no worries.
Again,
Okay.
we've sought out past chairs in the past. Mayor Alpert has attended several of those because she was available when a past chair or was the past chair that year. So it's at the board's pleasure.
So if we set it up where it was the chair, vice chair, and then Mayor Alpert.
Yeah.
Since she nominated the other way, it's got to go back this way.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so do I have a motion for that? Set up, so second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You oppose, hearing none. All right, member comments, anything on comments? From anyone? Other than thank you to everyone for obviously being here today, the holiday week. Wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. So enjoy all of that. So thank you very much. Hearing nothing else, we'll be adjourned. Our next meeting is January 27th. Thank you.